What's up, everybody? I wanted to make a video about plugins that I use kind of on my metering chain when I'm mixing. Um, you see a lot of questions about what headphones should I get? Should I be mixing on monitors over headphones and all that? Um, and so I wanted to show what I use. I used to have a really great setup with some KRKs and a really big desk, and I just don't have that same space in my apartment now. So I've been having to mix mostly on headphones, and there's some limitations, but there's ways that you can work around those limitations. That the plugins that I'm going to show you have definitely been very helpful in improving my ability to mix. Because none of these are going to make your mix sound better on their own, but they're going to give you information that you can make better mixing decisions. So I'm not going to go over like every single feature. I don't want to make this video too long. All of these plugins have demos, so I highly suggest you download them, try them out, and yeah, see if they work for you. So let's get going. So the first plugin that I want to talk about is Levels. This is from Mastering the Mix. This is essentially just a metering plugin. You can find a bunch of plugins that do similar things, but what I like about this is that it has everything kind of in one page, and you can kind of cycle through um, and check each thing out. So uh, if I hit play, and I'm going to turn on this utility when I'm talking just so I don't blow your speakers out. But as you can see, there's a peak reading, and we are well below our threshold of 6 dB, or you can kind of change your settings in here. So I have mine set to -6 to make sure that I have enough headroom when I'm mastering. You also have a LUFS meter. I find this more useful when you are mastering, and LUFS is essentially like a loudness, like another like average loudness reading. Um, Dynamic range, bass space. What you can do is you turn off your kick and your bass. You then play music. I'll just turn everything off. So it's going to show you if you have too much kind of low-end content with elements that are not your kick and bass. So that's going to help you get separation, avoid any kind of mud or clashing or kind of sub-bass buildup. Stereo feel is cool. You can filter it down so you can check the stereo spread of your sub-elements. This ability to check things in mono, I found that helpful when you're mixing like panned elements, percussive elements and hi-hats and all that stuff. What's really cool about this is if you have an issue, this will go red. So if you, let's do this. So clearly my peaks are over my threshold of -6. So this is going to give me a visual representation, or visual feedback that like, hey, you're having issues with your peaks. Obviously now I'm having issues with my LUFS. So what I really like about this is not only does it give you visual information, it also, if you hover over it, it will provide you with, it says here you can decrease the gain, but you can also reduce compression and limiting and all that to help with your LUFS. So it not only does it give you information, it also kind of gives you guides or tips on how to fix that, which I think is really cool because, if you're having issues with your stereo field, that's nice to know, but if you don't know how to fix it, that doesn't really help you there. So yeah, download the demos of all these again and try them out. But this one is you can find different plugins that do all the same things. But what I really like about this is the fact that it's all on one page. So let's check out the next plugin. So the next plugin, and if you just have me pick one of these as far as must have, it's this one. It's Reference. This is also from Mastering the Mix, and this is a game changer for me. So what it is allows you to use a reference track. So you find what you consider a really good mix, and it should be like within the same kind of type of music. So if you're making a dubstep song, or if you're making synthwave, you don't want to check it with dubstep because those balances are going to be all different. So, if you try to find, if you're making synthwave, find a synthwave. If you're, making progressive house, find a progressive house song that you think is a good mix. There's a couple ways you can use this. You can use this in mirror mode. Let me unloop this real quick. So in mirror mode, I find this most useful. It will kind of match up the playhead, the time in the track that you're playing in your DAW and the track that you have here. So I find that most useful when you are mastering. You drag in your unmastered mix into reference, you start to master, and what reference does is you have this button here, and this will level match. So it'll analyze the track, it will then level match your mix with your reference. So what that allows you to do is you can check your unmastered mix and compare it with your mastered mix at the same level, so you can actually hear the differences. Louder will often sound better. That's not always the case that it actually is better. So now you can start to compare apples to apples. But if you're using this, what I will often do is I'll find a track, and this may not be the best track for to reference what I'm making, but it'll work. I used the Midnight Stuff for my last album, The Revenant, because I think Tim has some of the cleanest mixes in the game. So what you can do is you could let it go and play the whole thing, or you can find a section and you can just control click, and now that's going to loop it essentially. So if I push this button here, reference, and I hit play, so now you notice that it brought the volume down. So it's going to level match with my mix. So I can switch back and forth. So I found that really helpful. One, just when you're kind of like setting your levels, you can get a mastered reference track at the same loudness and level of your unmastered mix, and then you can start to set, try to match volumes of the kick and the snares and all the different elements. And overall, you also have this, they call it the Trinity display. You can add more than 3 bands, but what this is going to do is this essentially is looking, this is your spectrum, this is all your frequencies. And this line here is going to show you how much more or less content you have within your mix compared to the reference. So if I hit play again, so as you can see, I have a bit more bass. Everything else, it doesn't have to be exact, but maybe there's a little less in the kind of upper mids, a little bit more in the mids. So maybe you got a little bit of mud. And I'm hoping that I can get vocals on this, so I'm leaving some areas, in the upper mids, leave some space. But if I wasn't, I might want to think about ways to fill out, the upper frequencies. Again, it's only a couple dB off, so it's not that huge. If you notice that you're like 5 dB, 6 dB, 7 dB, you definitely want to go back and take a look at that and make some changes. You also have this stereo width. Whatever track you're on is going to go white. And that is a way you start to compare, the width of your different bands with your reference track. So without a doubt, this one has to be my favorite of all these plugins. And if you were to say which one, of all these should I absolutely get, it has to be reference. There's other ones that do the same thing, but I have Metric AB, and I don't even use it anymore because this one is so good. And mixing on headphones, mixing on monitors, mixing just on your laptop speakers when you're sitting on your couch, this is incredibly helpful. And it's really not, I won't say changed the way I mix, but it has incredibly improved the way that I mix. You still have to know how to mix and how to get your levels right and everything, but this gives you feedback of whether or not you're doing a good job of that or not. So the next plugin is MORPHIT from Toneboosters. And I'm not really sure how this is going to come across on your speakers, because what this is a corrective EQ for a different set of headsets. All headsets are going to have some sort of EQ curve. The higher end monitoring ones are going to attempt to be more flat. If you have like Bose noise canceling headphones or Beats, you're going to have a pretty substantial EQ curve, and a lot of those are going to have a high boost in the sub because they want to make the music bump. and all that. So if you mix on that, you're going to have a ton of sub bass. And then when you play that somewhere else, and listening on other set of headphones or other set of speakers, there's not going to be that much bass. Um, so what this does is it attempts to kind of flatten out your EQ curve. So I have the M50Xs, so I'm often using this, and as you can see, they're a little bass heavy, so it's going to remove some of the bass. It's going to add some of the some stuff in the upper highs. Right now, I'm using my earbuds, so I can do this, and as you can see, the earbuds are very weak in the sub bass, so it's going to add a ton in the low end. And I gotta say, before making this video, I'd never actually tried this with the earbuds. It's a little bit of a difference with these, the M50s, but those are pretty good headphones to begin with. So you're not gonna have huge changes. You really, really start to notice the difference when you play it with not great headphones. So I actually mixed the Heist on earbuds, and I really wish that I had had this plugin back when I was doing that, because just making this video, I can really see the difference. So I'll just play. I don't know what's going to sound like on your system, but I'll just do it anyway. So yeah, again, download the demo. This is essentially an unlimited demo. You have to, pick your headset each time you open the project. So, if you're strapped, it's only 30 pounds. If you're strapped for cash or for whatever reason you can't afford it yet, you can still use it, which is awesome. You just have to keep, picking which set of headsets you want. But this one, I would say you definitely have to download and try out for yourself to really get a full feel of what it can do. But it's awesome. And last, I have CANOPENER from Goodhertz. This is essentially a set it and forget it type of plugin. And what this does is when you're mixing on headphones, you have a very clear divide between the right and left channels, right? Your head, your noggin is that like direct split down the middle. When you're mixing on monitors, you are going to have a bit of crossfeed. You're going to have some stuff from the left channel, some stuff from the right channel. There's going to be some overlap, and so you have like a better sound stage. That was one thing that I noticed when I first got my KRKs. I was like, I feel like there's this like kind of like wall, this like cone of sound in front of me. It's really cool, and I could really pick out where different elements were in the mix. And so this tries to simulate that on headphones. So I just leave mine set to 100%, angle at 60. This is just the default. I did notice that it adds a little bit of sub bass, so I measured it out with a spectrum analyzer, and I took off about 2 dB. Really, it doesn't matter if I'm using reference before this. I'm mixing my sub bass levels correctly, but just to be hearing things properly, you can take off a little bit of the bass. And when you play this again, you may not be able to notice it too much coming through YouTube. So I highly suggest as a 15-day demo. Definitely get this, try it out, see if it works for you. But it's been really cool, and I really like it so far. So I'll just play it. So yeah, at least for me, when I'm listening, I can when I turn it off, I kind of just subtle, but you feel that there's like this distinct separation between the sides. Um, so yeah, that is really it. I cannot recommend reference enough. Again, this is my like number one. But all these have demos. I believe levels and reference are 15 days. I know for sure CANOPENER is 15 days, and MORPHIT is essentially unlimited. So download them, try them out. If you like them, buy them, support the people that made them, because these are pretty awesome. But yeah, that is kind of the ways that I can overcome some of the shortcomings of mixing on headphones, and even if you aren't mixing on, if you're mixing on monitors, a lot of these will still help you out. Reference for sure and levels. So that is about it. I will see you next time.